Commander Elena Rodriguez stood at the viewport of the ESS horizon, watching the strange crystalline structures that stretched across the surface of Kepler 186f. After 3 years of deep space exploration, this was the first sign of intelligent life humanity had ever encountered, and it was long dead, or so they thought. The structures glowed with a faint blue luminescence, despite being buried under millennia of ice and dust. Elena's team had spent weeks carefully excavating what appeared to be an entrance, using laser drills to cut through the frozen surface without damaging the alien architecture beneath. "Commander, you need to see this." Dr. James Chen's voice crackled through her comm unit. The xenoarchaeologist's excitement was palpable even through the static. "We found something in the central chamber. Something. Active." Elena made her way through the ship's corridors to the science lab, where holographic displays showed real-time feeds from the excavation site. The central chamber they'd uncovered was massive, easily the size of a football stadium, but it wasn't the scale that made her breath catch. It was the rows upon rows of transparent pods that lined the walls, each containing what appeared to be a humanoid figure. "Are they?" Elena began. "Alive?" James finished. "According to our readings, yes. They're in some form of suspended animation. The pods are maintaining minimal life support functions. We estimate there are over 10,000 of them." Before Elena could respond, the ship's AI, cut in with an urgent alert. "Commander, multiple objects have just emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures are massive. They're heading directly for us." Elena straightened, years of training kicking in. "Battle stations. Get me a visual." The holographic displays shifted, showing a fleet of sleek, silver vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with impossible grace, their formation perfect and unwavering. As Elena watched, a transmission cut through all frequencies, broadcasting in perfect English. "Human vessel, this is the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. Your species has been found in violation of quarantine protocols. Stand down immediately and prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in immediate termination." Elena's mind raced. Humanity had never encountered alien life before, let alone a Galactic Council. Something wasn't adding up. She opened a channel to the science team still on the surface. "James, what else can you tell me about those pods?" "The beings inside. They're humanoid, but definitely not human. Their DNA structure is far more complex than ours, and their neural patterns suggest extremely advanced cognitive capabilities. But here's the strange part. We found data crystals with partial translations. They call themselves the Eternals, and according to the fragments we've decoded, they were some kind of peacekeeping force." The pieces started falling into place. "A peacekeeping force that went into hibernation," Elena mused, "right around the time Earth was supposedly put under quarantine." "Commander," ARIA interrupted, "the Council vessels are charging weapons." Elena made her decision. "James, wake them up. All of them." "What? We haven't even begun to understand their revival protocols. It could kill them. If we don't try, we're all dead anyway." Elena opened a channel to the Council fleet. "This is Commander Rodriguez. We request time to comply with your orders. Our engines were damaged during our exploration mission. We need 12 hours for repairs." There was a long pause before the response came. "You have 6 hours. Any attempt to flee or resist will result in immediate destruction." Elena turned to her crew. 6 hours to wake up an ancient race of advanced aliens and convince them to help us. No pressure. The next few hours were a blur of activity. James and his team worked frantically to decode the revival protocols, while Elena had the rest of the crew preparing for every possible outcome. They found more data crystals, each revealing pieces of a larger puzzle. The Eternals hadn't just been peacekeepers, they had been the original guardians of the galaxy, until a faction that would later become the Galactic Council betrayed them. 5 hours in, they managed to decrypt the revival sequence. Alina watched from the ship as thousands of pods began to pulse with increasing brightness. The first pod opened with a hiss of ancient machinery coming to life. The being that emerged was tall, with silvery skin that seemed to shift like liquid mercury. Its eyes opened, revealing irises that swirled with galaxies. The Eternal spoke, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "We hear your call, children of Earth. We have slept too long." More pods opened, each releasing another Eternal. They moved with fluid grace, their bodies adjusting rapidly to awakening after eons of slumber. Through their telepathic connection, Alina learned the truth. Humanity hadn't been put under quarantine. They had been protected. The Eternals had hidden Earth away before their forced hibernation, knowing that humanity had the potential to evolve into something extraordinary. The Council wasn't a governing body. It was a collective of species that had seized power in the Eternals' absence, enforcing their will through superior technology and numbers. They kept younger species isolated and controlled, harvesting their resources and potential. With less than an hour remaining before the Council's deadline, the Eternals gathered in the central chamber. Their leader, who called himself First Dawn, turned to Alina. "Your people woke us from our slumber, showing courage and curiosity, where others would have shown fear and greed. Now we offer you a choice. Stand with us against those who would chain the stars themselves, or retreat to the safety of your world. Either way, we will ensure Earth's protection." Alina didn't hesitate. Humanity doesn't run from bullies, no matter how powerful they are. "We stand with you." First Dawn's form rippled with approval. "Then let us show the Council why they were right to fear our return." The 6-hour deadline arrived. The Council ships moved into attack formation, their weapons charged. Alina opened a channel one last time. "This is Commander Rodriguez. We've considered your offer of surrender. Your decision," the Council representative demanded. Alina smiled as the Eternal Fleet rose from beneath the planet's surface, thousands of crystalline ships that had lain dormant alongside their creators. "I think you should run." The Eternal ships took position around the ESS horizon, their ancient engines humming with power that made the Council's technology look primitive in comparison. First Dawn's voice echoed across all frequencies. "Your reign of terror ends today. The children of Earth have proven themselves worthy successors to our legacy. They will join us in bringing true peace to the galaxy, not through force and fear, but through understanding and growth." The Council fleet retreated in disarray, but Alina knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had unwittingly stumbled into a galactic conflict, but they hadn't come unprepared. They had awakened legends, and in doing so, had begun writing their own legend among the stars. As the Eternal ships escorted the horizon back toward Earth, Alina looked at the creature who had once been merely a myth, now standing beside her on the bridge. "They'll be back with reinforcements." First Dawn's body shimmered with what Alina had learned was amusement. "Of course they will. And we will be ready. The real question, Commander Rodriguez, is will humanity be ready to take its place among the stars?" Alina thought of all the stories of human resilience, of their capacity for both great destruction and incredible compassion. "We've been ready for a long time. We just needed the right opportunity to prove it." The journey back to Earth would take weeks. Even with the Eternals' advanced drive systems, it would give them time to prepare, to plan, and to learn from each other. Humanity had taken its first real steps into a larger universe, and they had done it not through conquest or submission, but by showing the very qualities that made them unique: curiosity, courage, and compassion. As they approached the edge of their solar system, Alina received a message from Earth's Unified Defense Command. They had detected the approaching fleet and were preparing for possible invasion. She smiled as she composed her response. "Stand down, defensive systems. We're coming home, and we're bringing hope with us." The news of humanity's first contact with not one but two alien civilizations sent shockwaves through Earth's societies. As the ESS horizon approached Earth, flanked by the crystalline ships of the Eternals, the planet's major powers scrambled to formulate a response. Military forces were mobilized, then stood down. Religious leaders called for calm while philosophers debated the implications of humanity's new place in the cosmos. Elena Rodriguez stood in the United Nations General Assembly, First Dawn at her side. The Eternal's mere presence seemed to fill the vast chamber with an otherworldly energy that had the assembled leaders shifting in their seats. Behind them, a holographic display showed the Council's fleet regrouping at the edge of known space, their numbers growing by the hour. "We have approximately 3 Earth months," Elena explained, "before the Council amasses enough forces to launch a full-scale invasion. They won't just target our military installations. They'll attempt to subjugate every human on Earth." First Dawn stepped forward, his liquid mercury form rippling with urgency. "Your world stands at a crossroads. The Council fears what humanity might become. They have watched your rapid advancement from primitive tools to space exploration in mere millennia, an unprecedented rate of development. Where other species took tens of thousands of years to achieve spaceflight, you did it in less than a century." The Chinese premier leaned forward. "And your people? The Eternals? Where do you fit into this equation?" First Dawn's form shifted, projecting a 3-dimensional image of the galaxy. Points of light indicated civilizations under Council control, while dark regions showed unexplored space. "We were the guardians of freedom in this galaxy until the Council's betrayal. They arose from species we had uplifted, taught, and trusted. While we believed in guiding younger races toward their own destiny, they chose control and exploitation. Why help us?" The American president's voice carried across the chamber. "What makes humanity different?" Elena watched as First Dawn's form rippled with what she now recognized as pride. "Because you woke us up. Not by accident, not through blind luck, but through deliberate exploration and scientific advancement. When you found our sanctuary, you didn't try to exploit it. You tried to understand it. This speaks to the core of who you are as a species." The next hours were filled with intense debate as Earth's leaders grappled with the reality of their situation. The Eternals offered to share some of their technology, not as a handout, but as tools to help humanity defend itself. In return, they needed Earth's resources and industrial capacity to repair and rebuild their ancient fleet. Dr. James Chen, who had been quietly analyzing data in the background, stepped forward with a startling revelation. "We found something in the Eternal's genetic structure," he announced, drawing everyone's attention. "There are similarities to human DNA, too many to be coincidental." First Dawn's form pulsed with approval. "We wondered who would notice first. Yes, our peoples share a connection. Long ago, when we first discovered Earth, we saw potential in your primitive ancestors. We didn't directly modify your species, but we did nudge your development in certain directions, enhanced capacity for abstract thought, improved pattern recognition, increased adaptability." The revelation caused an uproar in the assembly. Some leaders saw it as proof they should trust the Eternals, while others viewed it as evidence of ancient manipulation. Elena raised her hand for silence. "None of that matters now," she declared. "What matters is survival. The Council is coming, and they won't stop with Earth. They'll continue subjugating species across the galaxy unless we stop them." Over the next weeks, an unprecedented global cooperation emerged. The Eternals began teaching humans how to adapt their crystalline technology to Earth's manufacturing capabilities. Scientists worked around the clock to understand and implement alien principles that seemed to defy physics itself. In Singapore, massive factories were retooled to produce energy weapons that could penetrate Council shields. In Brazil, researchers learned to grow living ships using modified versions of Earth's own coral reefs. The Russian steppes became testing grounds for gravity manipulation technology, while the Sahara hosted power collection arrays that could harvest energy directly from subspace. But it wasn't just about military preparation. The Eternals shared medical knowledge that revolutionized human healthcare overnight. Diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia could now be cured with simple treatments. Clean energy technology eliminated pollution and resource scarcity. The very act of cooperation with the Eternals was advancing human civilization by centuries. Alina found herself working closely with First Dawn, learning the true history of the galaxy. The Eternals showed her ancient records of their civilization's height, a golden age of exploration and discovery. They had believed in uplifting younger species not through direct intervention, but by providing opportunities for growth and learning. The Council forgot the most important lesson we tried to teach. First Dawn explained one evening as they watched Earth's first crystal ship take flight. True strength comes from diversity, from allowing each species to develop its own unique solutions to universal problems. Is that why you helped early humans? Alina asked. To preserve our potential for unique development. First Dawn's form rippled with what might have been nostalgia. We saw in your ancestors what we once saw in ourselves, an insatiable curiosity, a drive to understand and explore. But you developed something we never did. Remarkable adaptability. Humans don't just survive challenges. You grow stronger from them. As the deadline for the Council's return approached, Earth had been transformed. Cities gleamed with crystalline towers that generated their own energy. The skies were filled with ships that combined human innovation with eternal technology. But more importantly, humanity had united with a common purpose. The Council's ambassadors arrived ahead of their fleet, expecting to find a primitive planet cowering in fear. Instead, they found a world bristling with defenses they barely understood. Human eternal hybrid ships patrolled the solar system, while orbital platforms housed weapons that could tear apart spacetime itself. In the final meeting before the Council's ultimatum expired, Alina stood before their ambassadors in the transformed UN chamber. The walls now shifted with living crystal that responded to human thoughts, a symbol of the synthesis between human and eternal technology. You came here expecting to find slaves, Alina declared. Instead, you found equals. The Eternals didn't give us their technology. They taught us how to develop our own. Every weapon, every ship, every defense system you see is the product of human ingenuity combined with eternal wisdom. The Council ambassadors exchanged worried glances. Their carefully laid plans had assumed a primitive species they could easily overwhelm. Instead, they faced a civilization that had advanced centuries in mere months, backed by their ancient enemies. This is your only warning, Alina continued. Leave Earth's space and recognize our independence, or face the consequences. We don't want war, but we will not submit to tyranny. As the ambassadors retreated to their ships, First Dawn placed a shimmering hand on Alina's shoulder. They'll be back, he said. The Council cannot accept the existence of a free species with our level of technology. Alina nodded, watching Earth's combined fleet take up defensive positions. I know. But when they return, they'll find that humanity doesn't just adopt technology. We improve it. We don't just learn lessons. We teach new ones. And we don't just fight for survival. We fight for freedom. The coming battle would reshape the galaxy, but for the first time, humanity would face it as true equals with their alien allies. The Council had wanted to prevent Earth's rise to power. Instead, they had catalyzed it, creating exactly what they had feared most, a human eternal alliance that could challenge their dominion over the stars. The Council's response came not with an invasion fleet, but with silence. 2 weeks after the ambassador's departure, Earth's long-range sensors detected unusual activity throughout nearby star systems. The Council was implementing a containment strategy, establishing blockades around human space while they prepared for something bigger. Alina studied the tactical display aboard the newly commissioned EHS Defiant, Earth's first hybrid capital ship. The vessel combined human military doctrine with eternal crystal technology, creating something entirely new. Its hull could reconfigure itself in real time, adapting to enemy attacks while its quantum computers calculated possible futures to predict enemy movements. They're trying to isolate us, Dr. Chen observed, his fingers dancing across the crystalline interface. After months of working with the eternal technology, the scientist had developed an almost intuitive understanding of its principles. But look at these energy signatures. They're not just building a blockade. They're constructing something. First Dawn's form shimmered with concern as he analyzed the data. These patterns, they're attempting to build a containment field around your entire solar system. If they succeed, they could cut Earth off from the rest of space-time itself. Elena's jaw tightened. How long do we have? At their current rate of construction, perhaps 2 months. But that's not what troubles me. First Dawn's form rippled with agitation. This technology, it shouldn't be possible for them to have it. This was theoretical even in our time. Could they have developed it on their own? Elena asked. No. First Dawn's response was immediate. This is eternal technology, but corrupted. Change. They must have found one of our other sanctuaries. The implications were staggering. If the Council had access to more eternal technology, the coming conflict would be even more devastating than anticipated. Elena called an emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Council, the new organization coordinating humanity's military response to the crisis. But before they could begin planning a counter-strategy, HFY, the AI now integrated with eternal crystal matrices, detected something unusual. Commander, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions from within Council space. They're using multiple frequencies, bouncing through natural phenomena to avoid detection. But the pattern, it's deliberate. Elena leaned forward. Can you decode it? Working on it. HFY responded. The encryption is unlike anything in our databases, but wait. It's using a modified version of the eternal communication protocols. First Dawn moved closer to the display, his form shifting with recognition. These are resistance frequencies. When we went into hibernation, not all of our allies were caught. Some must have gone into hiding, maintaining their own networks. Over the next hours, HFY worked to decode the transmissions, revealing a stunning truth. The Council's iron grip on the galaxy was not as absolute as they claimed. Dozens of species had been quietly resisting their rule, waiting for an opportunity to break free. The news of the Eternal's return and humanity's defiance had sparked something unprecedented: hope. Elena saw an opportunity. If we can contact these resistance groups, coordinate our efforts, it would divide the Council's forces, First Dawn finished. Force them to fight on multiple fronts. Dr. Chen raised a hand. But how do we reach them? The Council's blockade. We don't need to break the blockade, Elena said, an idea forming. We just need to think like humans. She turned to the tactical display. HFY, show me all known Council patrol routes in nearby systems. A complex web of lines appeared, showing the movements of Council ships. Elena studied them intently. There, do you see it? They're efficient, methodical, and predictable. Their patrol patterns never vary by more than 0.01%. They think like machines. And that's their weakness, Dr. Chen realized. We can use that predictability against them. The plan that emerged was audacious. Using a combination of human ingenuity and eternal technology, they would create a network of quantum-entangled communication nodes. These would be deployed by small automated drones designed to slip through the gaps in Council patrol patterns, gaps that only existed for seconds at a time, but could be predicted thanks to the Council's rigid adherence to protocol. The operation was dubbed Firefly, and it showcased the perfect synthesis of human and eternal approaches. The Eternals provided the quantum entanglement technology, while humans contributed the unpredictable adaptive programming that allowed the drones to evade detection. As the network expanded, messages began flowing in from resistance groups throughout Council space. Elena learned that the corruption went deeper than anyone had suspected. The Council wasn't just controlling other species, they were harvesting them, using advanced technology to extract and store the cognitive essence of entire civilizations. They're building some kind of collective consciousness, First Dawn explained, his form dark with anger. Taking the most brilliant minds from each species, forcibly integrating them into their network. That's how they've advanced so quickly. They're stealing innovation itself. The revelation galvanized the resistance. Earth began sharing its hybrid technology designs with other groups, showing them how to combine their own unique approaches with eternal principles. Each species brought something different to the fight. The Zarkathi's mastery of bioengineering, the Enxthi's quantum computation skills, the Vrel's expertise in stellar manipulation. But it was humanity's gift for adaptation and innovation that proved most valuable. Where other species tended to use technology in prescribed ways, humans constantly found new applications, new combinations, new possibilities that no one had considered. Elena watched with pride as the resistance grew stronger. The Council's containment field project was repeatedly sabotaged by coordinated strikes. Their patrols were disrupted by attacks that seemed to come from nowhere, using tactics that changed too quickly for their predictive algorithms to counter. The turning point came when a Council battle group encountered what appeared to be a small human merchant vessel near the blockade. Following their protocols, they'd moved to intercept it. But as they approached, the ship suddenly split apart, each section transforming into a different configuration. What had appeared to be a single vulnerable target became a swarm of heavily armed fighters, their hybrid technology allowing them to adapt their attack patterns faster than the Council ships could respond. The entire battle group was disabled without a single casualty on either side. When Council recovery teams arrived, they found their ship's systems completely transformed. Human computer viruses, carried by eternal quantum particles, had rewritten their core programming. The Council ships now broadcast a simple message on all frequencies: freedom cannot be contained. The incident sparked a wave of similar operations throughout Council space. Resistance groups began using modified versions of human tactics, each adding their own unique twists. The Council found itself fighting an enemy that refused to play by their rules, that turned their own rigid protocols against them. Back on Earth, Elena and First Dawn watched as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Council's grip was weakening, their carefully constructed order giving way to chaos. But not the destructive chaos they had feared. This was the chaos of creation, of evolution, of life refusing to be constrained. They never understood. First Dawn mused, watching a holographic display of the growing resistance network. The Council sought to impose order through control, to create perfection through uniformity. But true strength comes from diversity, from the endless possibilities that arise when different perspectives combine in new ways. Elena nodded, thinking of how far humanity had come in such a short time. That's what they really feared about us, isn't it? Not just our potential for advancement, but our ability to adapt, to change, to see possibilities where others see only established patterns. Yes, First Dawn agreed. And now you've taught that lesson to others. The Council wanted to prevent the rise of species that could challenge their authority. Instead, they've created the conditions for their own obsolescence. But even as the resistance grew stronger, Elena knew the real battle was yet to come. The Council was being pushed back, yes, but they still held their greatest weapon in reserve, the corrupted eternal technology they'd discovered, and the harvested minds of countless civilizations. They'll use it soon, she said, studying the latest intelligence reports. When they do, it won't just be a battle for freedom. It will be a battle for the very nature of consciousness itself. First Dawn's form pulsed with determination. Then we will face it together, humans, Eternals, and all who choose to stand with us. Not as masters and servants, not as teachers and students, but as equals, each bringing our own strengths to the fight. Elena smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. The galaxy stood on the brink of transformation, and humanity had helped light the spark. Whatever came next, there would be no returning to the old order. The Council had wanted to prevent change. Instead, they had become its catalyst. Send word to all resistance groups, she commanded. Tell them to prepare for the next phase. The Council thought they could contain us, control us, predict our every move. Time to show them just how wrong they were. The intelligence came from a small resistance cell in the Carina Nebula. The Council was constructing something massive in the heart of their territory. Long-range scans revealed an artificial structure larger than Earth's moon, its surface writhing with corrupted eternal crystal technology. Energy readings were off the charts, suggesting power consumption that could rival a small star. Elena stood in the war room aboard the EHS Defiant, surrounded by holographic representations of resistance leaders from across the galaxy. Some appeared as their natural forms, others as abstract patterns of light and energy, but all shared the same grim determination. "Our deep cover operatives have confirmed our worst fears," she announced. "The Council is building what they call a consensus engine. It's designed to forcibly link every sentient mind in their territory into a single, controlled network. They're not just trying to suppress freedom. They're trying to eliminate the very possibility of independent thought." First Dawn's form darkened with rage. "They've perverted everything we stood for. The eternal way was to guide, to nurture diversity. This is annihilation disguised as unity." Dr. Chen stepped forward, his hands moving through the holographic displays. "The technology is based on eternal principles of quantum consciousness manipulation, but they've twisted it. Instead of enhancing individual potential, it suppresses it. Every mind added to the network becomes another processing node, stripped of autonomy." "How long do we have?" asked Thera, the Zarkathi resistance leader, her bioluminescent form pulsing with concern. "The engine will be operational in 30 days, Elena replied. "Once it activates, its effect will spread through subspace, affecting every world in Council space almost instantly. We have one chance to stop this." The plan that emerged was arguably the most ambitious military operation in human history. While the Resistance had been conducting hit-and-run attacks, Earth's scientists and the Eternals had been working on something revolutionary, a way to purify corrupted crystal technology, returning it to its original state. The key had come from an unexpected source: human music. Dr. Chen had discovered that crystal structures responded to harmonic frequencies in ways that defied conventional physics. By combining specific musical patterns with quantum manipulation, they could essentially remind corrupted crystals of their true nature. "The Council thinks in absolutes," Elena explained the assembled leaders. "Their entire system is built on rigid control and predictability. But human music, like human nature, is all about variation, improvisation, the spaces between notes. It's organized chaos, and that's something their systems can't handle." The operation would require precise coordination between hundreds of resistance cells. While the main fleet engaged the Council's defenses, small teams would infiltrate the consensus engine itself. Each team would carry specially designed resonators tuned to specific harmonic frequencies. But the truly audacious part of the plan came from humanity's newest innovation: quantum-entangled crystal ships. Based on principles that even the Eternals hadn't fully explored, these vessels could temporarily exist in multiple states simultaneously, making them nearly impossible to target effectively. The Council's rigid, predictable systems would be trying to engage ships that operated on principles of uncertainty and probability. It was the perfect metaphor for the larger conflict: the ordered versus the unpredictable, control versus freedom. As the Allied fleet assembled in secret locations throughout the galaxy, Elena found herself in a quiet moment with First Dawn. The Eternal's form rippled with what she had learned to recognize as pride. "When we first awakened," he said, "we thought we would be teaching humanity. Instead, you've taught us. We had forgotten that progress isn't just about advancement. It's about transformation." Elena smiled. "We all had something to learn. Humans had the drive and creativity, but we needed your wisdom to help focus it. The Council thinks combining different species weakens them. We've proved it makes us stronger." The attack began not with a dramatic charge, but with silence. Using technology developed by the Inxthi Resistance, the Allied fleet approached through artificial quantum filaments, spaces that existed between normal spacetime. When they emerged, they were already inside the Council's defensive perimeter. The Council's response was predictably efficient, their ships moving into preset defensive formations. But they had never faced an enemy like this before. The quantum-entangled human ships seemed to ignore basic laws of physics, appearing to be in multiple places simultaneously. Eternal crystal weapons fired through gaps in reality created by Zar-Kathi Biotech. Vrel's solar manipulators created micronovas that rippled through the Council formation. Elena commanded from the Defiant, coordinating the massive assault. The Council's rigid combat algorithms struggled to adapt to tactics that change not just moment by moment, but seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Their perfectly ordered formations began to break apart. But the Council had one final card to play. As the Allied fleet approached the consensus engine, the massive structure began to pulse with corrupt crystal energy. Waves of psychic force washed over the attacking ships, attempting to forcibly connect their crews to the emerging network. This was the moment they had prepared for. Throughout the fleet, crews activated their resonators. Human music, everything from classical symphonies to rock anthems, began broadcasting through quantum-enhanced crystals. The corrupted technology in the consensus engine tried to impose order, but it was fighting against something it couldn't quantify: human creativity and emotion expressed through mathematics and energy. The effect rippled through space like a wave of crystalline lightning. Council ships began to transform as their corrupt technology responded to the harmonic frequencies. The consensus engine itself started to change, its surface shifting from angry red to pure, clear blue. But victory came at a cost. The quantum instabilities created by the battle were approaching critical levels. Reality itself was becoming unstable around the massive structure. All ships, full retreat, Elena ordered. The engine is going to collapse. The Allied fleet pulled back as the consensus engine began to implode. But instead of the expected catastrophic explosion, something extraordinary happened. The structure collapsed inward, forming a perfect crystalline sphere about the size of a basketball. First Dawn's form pulsed with amazement. It's reformatted itself. The corrupt technology has been purified and compressed into a stable form. This is beyond anything we ever achieved. As the dust settled, the full extent of their victory became clear. Without the corrupted technology, the Council's military advantage had evaporated. More importantly, the forced mental connections they had established began to break down, freeing countless minds from their control. But the most significant change was philosophical. The Council's entire system had been based on the idea that order could only come through rigid control. The Alliance had proved that true strength came from diversity, from the unpredictable combinations that emerged when different species worked together freely. Elena watched as former Council worlds began declaring their independence. The galaxy was transforming, becoming something new, not through force or control, but through cooperation and choice. What happens now? She asked First Dawn as they observed the crystalline sphere that had once been the consensus engine. The Eternal's form shifted thoughtfully. Now we all face the greatest challenge: learning to live together as equals. The Council's way failed because it tried to enforce unity from above. True unity has to grow naturally, from the free exchange of ideas and the celebration of differences. Elena nodded, thinking of how far humanity had come from its first tentative steps into space. They had not only found their place among the stars, but had helped reshape the very nature of galactic civilization. The Council thought they could predict and control the future, she said. They never understood that the future isn't something you control. It's something you create together. 5 years after the fall of the Council, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. The rigid hierarchies and enforced order had given way to a complex network of autonomous worlds and species, each contributing their unique perspectives to a new form of galactic society. At the center of this transformation stood Earth, no longer a quarantine backwater, but a crucial nexus of innovation and diplomacy. Elena Rodriguez stood in the newly completed Galactic Exchange Center in Geneva, watching representatives from hundreds of species interact in the vast crystalline chamber. The building itself was a testament to the new era. Its living crystal architecture responded to the thoughts and emotions of its occupants, creating spaces that adapted to facilitate understanding between wildly different forms of life. "Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come," Dr. Chen said, joining her at the observation point. The scientist had aged in the years since their first encounter with the Eternals, but his eyes still held the same enthusiasm for discovery. "The Council would have called this chaos," Alina replied, gesturing to the diverse gathering below. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked together, sharing knowledge and resources freely. But look at what this chaos has created. The crystalline sphere that had once been the consensus engine now floated in the center of the chamber, transformed into something entirely new. Instead of forcing minds together, it served as a universal translator, helping different species understand not just each other's words, but their concepts and emotions as well. It was the perfect symbol of how the Council's weapons had been transformed into tools for cooperation. First Dawn emerged from a group of delegates, his form shimmering with satisfaction. In the years since the Council's fall, the Eternals had adapted to their new role as partners rather than guardians. "The latest research results from the Zarkathi Human Genetic Institute are remarkable," he announced. "They found a way to use crystal technology to accelerate beneficial mutations without compromising species integrity. It's an entirely new approach to evolution itself." This was just one of countless collaborations that had sprung up in the post-Council era. Without artificial barriers between species, innovation had exploded. These quantum computing expertise combined with human intuitive interfaces had revolutionized space travel. Vrel solar engineering merged with eternal crystal technology had solved energy crises across the galaxy. But perhaps the most significant changes had been cultural. The Council's fall had released thousands of species from enforced stagnation, allowing them to develop naturally. Some had chosen to merge into collective consciousness, others had spread out to explore the unknown reaches of space, and still others had focused on developing their inner potential in ways the Council had never imagined possible. "We're receiving another signal from the deep space expeditions," Araya announced, her holographic form materializing beside them. The AI had evolved too, becoming something between human, eternal, and pure digital consciousness. They found more evidence of other galactic civilizations beyond the Council's former borders. Some appear to be more advanced than anything we've encountered. Alina felt a familiar thrill of excitement. The galaxy was larger and more complex than anyone had imagined, filled with possibilities that even the Eternals hadn't dreamed of. "Have they made contact yet?" "Not directly," Araya replied. "But they've left messages in crystal formations similar to the ones where we found the Eternals. It seems this technology, or something like it, might be a universal constant, a natural bridge between different forms of consciousness." The implications were staggering. What they had thought was merely a tool might be fundamental to the very nature of intelligence in the universe. The Council had tried to use this connection to enforce uniformity, but in doing so, they had missed its true purpose, enabling diversity to flourish through understanding. A commotion near the chamber's entrance drew their attention. A new species had arrived, the first representatives of a civilization from outside former Council space. Their form was unlike anything they'd encountered before, seeming to exist partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. Without hesitation, Alina moved to greet them, First Dawn at her side. This was what humanity had helped create, a galaxy where the unknown was met with curiosity rather than fear, where difference was celebrated rather than suppressed. The new arrivals interfaced with the transformed engine, and their first translated words filled the chamber. "We have watched and waited, seeing how you would handle the power you discovered. You chose to use it for understanding rather than control. We are pleased to meet potential friends rather than necessary enemies." As diplomatic discussions began, Alina reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as an isolated species under quarantine, seen as a potential threat to be contained. Instead, they had become a catalyst for transformation, showing that true strength came not from controlling diversity, but from embracing it. "You know what the Council never understood," she said to First Dawn, as they watched the interactions unfold. "The universe isn't a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be explored." The Eternals' form rippled with agreement. "And that is why humanity succeeded where they failed. You never tried to impose your vision of order on the galaxy. You showed everyone a new way to grow together." Dr. Chen joined them, his tablet displaying data from the latest breakthrough in crystal technology. "We've barely scratched the surface," he said excitedly. "These new visitors, their understanding of crystal consciousness operates on principles we never imagined. It's like discovering basic physics all over again." Elena smiled, remembering the fear and uncertainty they had felt when the Council first appeared over Earth. That moment could have been the end of human independence. Instead, it had been the beginning of something far greater. The chamber hummed with the energy of countless minds working together, each contributing their unique perspective to the greater whole. The crystal architecture responded, creating patterns of light and sound that represented the harmony of diversity, not the enforced uniformity the Council had sought, but the natural resonance of different beings choosing to work together. "So," First Dawn asked, his form shifting to match the chamber's patterns, "what's next for humanity?" Elena looked out at the gathered species, at the new arrivals, at the endless possibilities stretching out before them. "What we do best," she replied. "Adapt, explore, create, and most importantly, help others do the same." Above them, the transformed engine pulsed with pure crystal light, no longer a tool of control but a symbol of connection. The Council had tried to write the end of history, to create a final, perfect order. Instead, they had inadvertently helped birth a new beginning, one where the future remained gloriously, wonderfully uncertain. As the new visitors began sharing their knowledge, adding their unique perspective to the galactic community, Elena felt a profound sense of rightness. This was what humanity had really fought for, not just their own freedom, but the right of all species to choose their own path, to contribute their own verse to the ongoing song of existence. The story of humanity's rise from quarantine species to galactic catalyst was already becoming legend among the stars. But Elena knew it wasn't really about humans alone, or even about the Eternals. It was about what became possible when different species chose to face the unknown together, each bringing their own strengths to the great journey of discovery. As night fell over Geneva, the crystal spires of the Exchange Center glowed with internal light, a beacon visible from orbit. It stood as a testament to a simple truth. The greatest adventures, the most profound discoveries, the most meaningful transformations, all came not from imposing order, but from embracing the beautiful uncertainty of connection.